fat comment.
Oh.
Just so that I could, like, I don't know, wrap that up. Because that left off weird feeling. And so I told you that I wanted to circle back to that. So that was where I was going to plan on starting. For me personally.
Yeah. So basically when I was talking about if you get fat, I'm getting rid of you.
Yeah. So that's where I'll start. Last episode, hey guys, we were talking about big things from small changes, and Montana had mentioned, or he had said, like, if you get fat, I'm kicking you to the curb, or like, you're gone, or something like that. And so I think last episode I had just like looked at him, gave him a look, and carried on, but for podcast purposes and communication purposes, after the fact, it had hit me that, like, oh, we probably should have elaborated on that because we know what that means, but that can come across as, like, potentially not your intention for what it was. So, more so, and I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong because I feel like I have an idea of what that actually means. But if that's not right, let me know. But it's not just like if you gain some weight, I decide that I'm like out of this relationship because, in my opinion, like bodies change and things shift. And even just in our relationship since we've been together, there have been like ebbs and flows of those things. And so for me, more so, that means that if I were to stop going to the gym and stop caring for myself in that way, that would be indicative of like a more bigger problem. Not just like I put on some weight, but like I'm not going to the gym, I'm not engaging in these healthy habits, I'm not taking care of myself.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, that's just a fucking sign, ultimately.
Right.
Like, if you're gaining weight and, like, one, I'll be honest, I'm fucking vain to a degree and I'm not gonna appreciate it. So, I don't mind the fluctuations here and there, but like there's like a teetering point, if you go over the edge at some degree, like, then there's gonna be a problem. But yeah, that's just an indicator. So that's just an indicator that you don't give a shit about, well, I shouldn't say, yeah. I mean, I'm pretty general, so like that you're not caring about yourself and then like obviously
To a degree, like our relationship too, because I know that that's how you are. So
yeah, that's something, vain or not, is important to me. So,
right, and I knew that going into this, like maybe not going into the relationship, but being married to you, I knew that.
Yeah.
So just wanted to circle back with that because
marriages are kind of like contracts, or, ideally, like,
well, yeah, you're committing.
mutual agreement, so, yeah, you're taking the person for sicker health, rich or poor, blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, like I have certain standards that you have to meet, and you have certain standards that I have to meet. And as soon as we start dropping the ball, like obviously there's gonna be times that we fucking drop the ball and not on purpose, or maybe even on purpose. But there will be times that we will drop the ball. But the problem is whether we can pick it back up and how fast we can recover, because like you might gain 5-10 pounds, which is like whatever to me, like okay, that's not a big deal. But if you start gaining 30, 40, 50 fucking pounds, like real, I'm out, like sorry. And odds are that your everything, a lot of shit, other shit will change too,
right.
So,
and that's again, like that's the sign. So it's not just like I put on a couple pounds, it's a bigger thing.
It's a bigger thing. So, yeah, I'm sure I sounded like an asshole saying that, but I don't.
You still might, but the point is, I just wanted to circle back to that because after the fact, I was like, oh, I didn't elaborate on it, you didn't elaborate on it, and just that statement by itself is not what that means to us. And so, again, for just like
you can take a little excerpt out of this, that's like what they do in politics and shit like that. You can turn that, you could turn it and twist it so hard, but it is what it is. Yeah. Just one of those things. So
yeah, I just felt important. I felt it was important to circle back on. Okay, but that is not the topic for today. Just one.
King Warriors, welcome. Episode 5, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, what are we talking about today? Oh, where we started.
The premise, I don't even know, topic, title for me, because I'm excited for this one, is how in the world did we get to where we are? So we have talked in previous podcasts just about how we've been together for a long time. over a decade now at this point have we been in each other's lives. And so where did we come from? Where did we hit certain things along the way on the path? And like again, we're not arrived by any means. We haven't like gotten
Never.
necessarily to anywhere, but just how did we get here? Where
And we're gonna start like basically where our initial relationship started. I'm sure we can go into, and that might be an episode for each one of us, like fucking childhood shit, because there's so much that go into that. So, at some point maybe we can sit down, do your shit and or vice versa, and have a whole episode dedicated to individual shit. And if our fuck, just so you know, if you're watching this, if it's like going in and out, it's fuzzy shit. Like we just got a brand new computer, we're still working this out. We might need lights because this, yeah, we're actually better on our fucking phones. So
for real than this laptop. But we did get it for podcasting purposes, and so we're running it today, and we're going to see what we can do with it. But just keep that in mind because it keeps like self-adjusting and doing things. So
yeah.
hang in there.
It's probably just as annoying for us as it is for you. But anyways, so in 2012, I graduated high school, and went to college for my one semester. The only reason I did it is because basically, like, society was pushing me to do it. My mom said either you go to school or you get a job and pay rent. So I was like, well, I'll go to school because all my friends were going to school, right? And and I knew I didn't really like school. I fucking hated high school. I cheated all the way through it, and it was super easy, and I didn't care, and I just screwed off. Um, and then I went to college, and I basically applied the same thing, and I did okay. I mean, I was a C student with the amount of effort I put in, and I'm sure I could do really well if I wanted to, go through the whole fucking indoctrination. But it wasn't really something that I enjoyed. So I did one semester, gave it the old college try, and then I ended up meeting her through a friend of hers that I had class with, liberal arts class, which is the easiest fucking class because you could just literally make up anything and it was the right answer as long as you could have a relatively justified answer to it. So
Tangent, but that yeah. So my roommate and high school friend was in this class with him, and they were in a group together for a group project. I think you guys all came over to our apartment to like work on some stuff, and that was like
yeah, we had this project. Her, Corey, and then there was another chick. She was a volleyball player. But
so that was our very first initial meeting. Just like, hey, here's my group members. This is my roommate. Like that was it. Um, and so to go a little bit before that. So this is going to be one of my real and vulnerable moments. I'm letting you all in on some stuff, but I had at this point been dating still a high school boyfriend. So I grew up on the east side of the state, came over to the west side, and so we had still kind of been dating, but at this point we were a little bit like rocky, trying to figure out if we wanted to be together or not, blah blah blah. So my friend, who this is just of her nature, was like, hey, like, here's, like, I think this was after we had met, right? She was like, here's Andrea's number.
yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, we never really met officially, kind of like we just met that in that passing.
Right.
And then
People.
yeah, she gave us that number or me that number. Yeah.
My number, yeah. So then, yeah, that was that. I think there's the crosswalk moment. So we had seen each other on Grand Valley's campus. Didn't say hi because I don't know, but
Young,
anyway.
awkward, weird.
I don't know if that's really important to the story, but it's just kind of cool because looking back on it, like, we remember seeing each other and we didn't say hi. And so that was the start of us hanging out, starting to talk a little bit. I don't even necessarily remember how the whole us.
Yeah, that was the end of 2012, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we started talking and whatever else. And I used to work. I used to work at a place called Dematic, and then I worked at a construction company. So I got out of like Dematic slash the construction company because like I was working like fucking 16-hour days. So I would go work in the morning at the construction company for 4 hours. And then after that, I'd work at a manufacturing company in Grand Rapids called Dematic, And then after that, I'd go hang out with her for maybe an hour or whatever, and then I'd go home, sleep, let the dogs out, and do the shit all over again. And so that's how we spent a lot of our beginning time, because
Mm-hmm.
I did that for a couple months, or at least a month, if not a couple months, and um, so on and so forth. So then after that, I mean, in the beginning, we had a super toxic relationship.
Well, like, even looking, because so we didn't officially start dating until April of
It was like six
2013.
6 months after.
Yeah, we had been like hanging out, talking. We never had like a conversation of where are we, what are we, and it's funny because I think at that time like you were okay with that because you were very like if I want to like hang out with a girl for a little bit I will, and then if I want to dip like I'm going to, and so and I was one.
And there wasn't really anybody else involved at the time. It was
Yeah.
just like I didn't really, I wasn't gonna put a, I wasn't trying, it wasn't pressed and I wasn't pressing it. So
Right, and I wasn't pressing it, which we maybe we'll go into this like at another episode, but just like my self-esteem and my where I was as far as like I just wasn't asking because I'm like whatever, we're hanging out and it's fine.
she was getting the attention ultimately that she desired. So,
Right.
um,
But then officially started dating in April of 2013, and
which I didn't have the balls to do. I had Pasma, buddy, a high school buddy, I guess you'd say, bring in flowers and
he sat
basically,
in the car, so he
yeah,
was there.
yeah, yeah, sly. Oh,
Sly, scared, I don't know,
sly.
but I'm like, anyway. And so I don't necessarily know if our like toxic was then, because I think as somebody,
Yeah, it was like newly.
yeah, you're like in that honeymoon, right? Like this is fun, this is exciting.
Yeah.
We were like on our best behavior, kind of. Um, but then yeah, so started dating, and then I don't know if I could like pinpoint, but it just got rough.
Yeah.
It got ugly.
We did pretty decent up until I think we did pretty decent up until we right before we moved in with each other.
Yeah, because I lived in this apartment, not in the town we live in now, but just a small town right outside of it, and I think that's where it just there was like good obviously too, like the whole thing wasn't a shit show, but there was definitely shit show in it.
Yeah.
I just don't we weren't good to each other. We weren't kind.
Yeah, a lot of our traumas and shit started to come out basically, essentially. So I got kicked out of my mom's house, my parents' house, whatever. My mom's the one that kicked me out, which is whatever, it's fair. Told you, if I didn't go to college, I didn't get to live there rent free, and she wanted her rent money, and I was like, so she went on a trip with my dad. He's a long haul truck driver, was gone for a week and a half, 2 weeks or whatever. I threw a giant party, which I wasn't even really that big of a partier then. I was just doing it as a big fuck you, ultimately, because I knew I was out at that point. So I was like, dude, I'm going out with a bang. So had a double kegger. Amazingly, the cops never got called. Like there was hundreds of people there. Like
Yeah, it was crazy.
they were bouncing and they were trying to break the floors and shit. Yeah. But anyways,
But that was like a
got
turning point because
got kicked out. And then moved in with my grandmother for a few. I want to say 6 months or so, give or take. That was because that was a year after I was out of high school. Basically, I got kicked out, so I lasted a year in my parents' house. After
ish, yeah, 'cause it was winter time when that party happened.
yeah.
Yeah, so moved in with his grandma.
Yep, moved in with grandma. Her lease or whatever expired, and then
June, July of that summer.
Yeah.
And then I didn't have necessarily anywhere to go because the friends that I was living with, they had bought a house and they were together. So like they were doing their thing, and I was like, well,
and I was in the process of buying a house.
right.
So we
here's
moved
the
in.
thing, and
Yeah, yep. So at the age of 21, that's where we were at, basically.
yeah. So then I moved in with with them at
Yeah,
his grandma's house
okay.
too. So we were living at his grandma's house in her basement, which we are so thankful for because we wouldn't we needed that, and
Yeah,
so she
the stepping
that.
stone for us, for sure. So,
But it still was. It's just it was rough then too. I think we weren't on this path necessarily to like bettering ourselves or
yeah,
really
we were just
caring.
freaking off. We were partying a little bit. We weren't heavy partiers, especially because I was working full time, like so I didn't have time to party. And you were still in college, and you had a different mindset. So I was, we had two different mindsets. I was in the working, I want to fucking start, going on with life mindset, and then she was on the other path of like, I'm in college.
School.
Yeah, I'm still a fuck off kind of, mindset. So they're two different mindsets, and you're bringing them together. And then so I was kind of sour about her,
like having the time and going out and
yeah, drinking and whatever else while I'm working my ass off. So I was super resentful at that point.
And again, like we weren't this was the point in our life when we weren't aware of our shit. Like we were just going through it. Like we didn't.
Yeah, I knew I was mad. I mean, I didn't really know. I mean, I probably kind of knew I was mad, but I would, and even if I did, I didn't have the balls to tell her really directly at the time.
Like,
Like,
what
I did in roundabout ways, like telling her like I didn't like her partying or whatever else. But I was just overall resentful for her like lifestyle, at the time because I'm busting my balls and you're fucking off and basically like I don't like that. So
it was just rough. I think we fought a lot. We were not aware of our shit, so we were lots of ego in the situation, like lots of blame, not taking ownership of our stuff, and so you can just imagine how all like both of us, and if you know Montana, he's just I don't even know.
piece of work, a good guy.
I do too. Like I'm not saying that, but it's just Montana can be
I'm a lot more mean.
yeah, louder when he's at that time when he was angry and meaner and so, and I'm again we talked about this. I'm on the sensitive side. So like imagine that, right? Like he's mad, he's loud about it, he's whatever, and then there's me the sensitive one who
The victim.
and so it was just
It was a trauma bond at the essentially because you were kind of like the submissive victim and I was the asshole narcissistic type of person.
Right. So trauma bond, right? Like of course we're gonna find each other.
Everybody does. Well, majority of the society does this. So it just kind of depends on whether you can recognize it or not. Like my parents trauma bonded for sure. Knowing their childhood now because a lot of this stuff is a lot of the trauma you receive is from your childhood, and it might sound kind of gay or whatever else, but as a dude especially, but it's the shit's real. I mean, it's at the end of the day, we have triggers, we have addictions, we have and there's traumas that all those things come off of the traumas that we had as a child.
And we're gonna go into this in another episode, so I don't want to give too much away. But your core stuff is learned, implemented from ages like what?
What stuff?
Your core beliefs, your the way you see the world, how you think relationships should be, what you think of yourself, like all of these things are set when you're from like 0 to 7, 0 to 8. And so we're essentially as adults, when you're not aware of that, like playing that stuff out still. And so we very much were at that point.
You're programmed and then you're just on repeat basically on, playing that fucking shit out over and over and over again.
So rough period, right? So then we get this house. And so that was like fall of 2014. We finally move into our own space.
Freedom. First taste of freedom for both of us. Not for you, I guess. You had the freedom. It was just a different type of freedom.
Right? Because I lived in an apartment. I lived in dorms. Yeah. And so moving into like our house was just different.
It was my first taste altogether, which I loved because that. Essentially, like when I was a kid, I always just wanted to be out by myself. I thought that was so cool. Like I didn't have to fucking have mommy and daddy watching over me. Like fuck you. Like I thought it was kind of cool. Like my dad being a truck driver, like driving out. Like he just go do whatever he wants whenever he wants, and fucking he's just here and there. Like but I have to have dad with me all the time, and I gotta have mom with me all the time. So, like now I can at that point like I figured like shit if I just wanted to fucking drive to Colorado I could do it. Like having that freedom. Like it was huge for me at that point because I never had it and my mom was like super micromanaging. She did lay off in high school a little bit honestly because she knew about some of the shit that I was doing, like misbehaving type of activity, but she kind of just like no harm no foul if you don't get caught type of thing. So
So that was just super fun when we moved in. I think for me, like I felt like we were kind of playing house, and
yeah.
I mean, we still weren't at this point again. We were kind of just in the same place we were at his grandma's house, just now in our own space and with our own.
So I just went. The fucking fights got bigger, and we got louder, and I got more aggressive. Like literally, I was so psychotic, and this was all learned behavior, correct? Right? So like, she'd piss me off, and I wouldn't fucking talk to her for like a few days.
I do want to say too, because you say you got more aggressive, which is true, but there was never like physical stuff. Like we never. Sure, he may act like it, but like that was never. Our relationship didn't get to that point where we were like physically abusive or domestic violence type stuff. Now, if we
want to hit you, I still do sometimes.
Ditto. If we talk about like emotional abuse though or verbal abuse, that was probably honestly there. Yeah. And again, learned behavior type stuff. So yeah, I mean, we were just in this house for a couple of years. I have some notes here to like make sure that we hit all the things. But is there anything do you think from like moving into when we first got into our like main personal development thing that you can?
Family?
Yeah.
No, not specifically. Not that I can really think of. I mean, I might think of something later, but not that comes to the top of my head right now.
Same. So then in 2016, which is actually kind of interesting because this would have been the second time that he had heard about this business opportunity. But in 2016, there was a business opportunity presented to you specifically.
Yeah, Jeremy hit me up originally, and I think I was still at my grandma's, or no, I was still at my parents. I was still at my parents at that time.
The first time he.
Yeah, okay. Yep. Because I sat down with him and talked to him about, and I think we went to Jet's Pizza, and yeah, so I went to Jet's Pizza with Jeremy. So that was like shortly after high school.
So that was the first time he had heard about it, like didn't do anything with it. Okay, fast forward to 2016, and it had been brought up to him again.
By a kid that was in a grade or two below me.
So for those of you in Grand Rapids, Michigan, probably you know Amway. So
yeah.
It was Amway. And I know network marketing and that can have a bad rap, but let me tell you, it was that had catapulted us to where we are now.
You're fucking brainwashed if you think network marketing is
like a pyramid scheme. Absolutely, you don't have all of the knowledge to make an informed decision, I bet.
Real quick, you got a job, right? And you're here. Well, then you got a fucking supervisor. He's here. And that supervisor has a CEO. He's here. Guess what? You're in a fucking pyramid scheme, motherfucker. Welcome to the fucking world.
And that's a true pyramid.
That just woke somebody up, because that's fucking real shit right there. At least in network marketing, you have the opportunity to beat or make more money than the person who got you in. You just have to outwork their ass. Like, that's simple as that. So I fucking promote network marketing all day long. One, because it's a good business model. And two, because you get paid based off the work that you do and the productivity that you make. And that's how I think everybody should get paid.
And so, that's what I was going to circle back to. That's a job is your true pyramid scheme, because you will never, no matter how much more work you do than your boss, make more than him.
Yeah,
like exactly. That's when you have a ceiling, like that's your pyramid scheme.
And you work harder than that.
Network marketing, that's not the case. Like he said, you can make more money than the people quote unquote above you. And it's also very like team oriented, because if I succeed, you succeed, they succeed. Like it's not
a team. It's a team thing. So if she was under me or whatever, like I want her to do well because I do better if she does well, and and so on and so forth. So like I pour into her with books and education and time and everything in order to lift her up, basically. Because if I lift her up, she's going to automatically then lift me up. So if I can lift you up, like I get lifted up with you guys. So, but that's another fucking story. If you guys want to know more about that, hit me up. So
yes,
I'm not involved, and I'm not saying I'm a whiz, but I know people that are still involved, and they are doing well. So.
And then again, so this was, I don't know if, most network marketing things, I think now that we've been aware of, have this like other training side. It's not just like you sell things and that's it. And so that's what this was too. So there was, obviously we had stuff to sell, but there was this like training piece of it of like how to go about it well, how to speak with people. Yeah, personal development. And so this was like our first big major intro to that because they recommended books. They recommended that you read those books daily. They recommended listening to like audios. And so garbage in, garbage out, but like positive and good stuff in, positive and good stuff out. So that's what they were like all about.
They fucking brainwashed us. They got all that shitty bullshit out of our fucking brains. That's what they did. That's
so good. And so that again was just like this huge catapult, this like eye opener, this like holy crap. Like we can change who we are as human beings. We can do these really awesome things. We can feel good.
And I'll say that was one of the things. And once I got a taste of that, I was like, holy fuck, this is epic. Like, I like this. Because I'm very type A, so usually the things that I dive deep into or I get involved with, like, I go balls deep because I like it, So then once I figured I could change myself and manipulate my reality, like, because of me, that was huge. But when we figured that out, you were like so in the beginning. You were not about it because remember you were like, "Why should it change me?" And shit like that. So you were very like you weren't necessarily against it per se, but you were overall like you did not adapt to it as well.
And that's because again, I had this core belief that and
you're perfect.
Well, no, not perfect, but like that I shouldn't have to change anything ever and that you should just accept all of that.
Yeah.
And accepting somebody for who they are and meeting them where they're at, I think is different than what I was thinking. Like, I was like, you want me to change? That's not cool. You should just. But like now where we are, like absolutely change is the goal. Like I don't want to stay the same. And that's like what they were like, you don't want to be the same person today as you are in a year or even next week or next month.
Up. And you're not going to be at the end of the day, honestly. You're either going to get worse or you're going to get better. You're not going to be the same person you are in next year as you are today. It's impossible. So.
And so that was our main and first
introduction.
Yeah, that set us on this path for sure.
Which I'm super grateful for and thankful for.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't make a shit ton of money in the Amway, and we also didn't put in the work, to be honest.
Right.
But but it opened our eyes to a whole new reality, and that was the key thing. That was a stepping stone that changed the whole trajectory of our whole lives.
Absolutely, and it got us around people that think differently and think bigger, and we're just like good human beings. Like even to this day, like those people that we were surrounded by, they are such good people. And that's what you want. You want to surround yourself with those types of people. Yeah. Like they were trustworthy, loyal, helpful, like have these huge hearts, like. Those are good human beings.
Yeah. And we had surface level relationships with them for the most part.
Yeah.
But those were the people that you could get deeper with, because a lot of like work relationships or high school friends or whatever, especially high school friends, they're like bullshit surface level relationships where you can't like talk about like having conversations like we're having right now, like it's not, you're always like fucking sports or let's go fucking party on the weekend,
video
games or hunting or blah blah blah.
This is judgy because if that's what you're into, like cool, but we are into much deeper than that.
Yeah,
for sure.
There's a lot more to life than just like the surface level bullshit things. So
and then around the same time, we also started going to a church. So you had been invited by somebody. So that's kind of ironic, full circle with some of this stuff. The church that we started going to, you had gone to as a kid.
Yeah, I went to Awana as a kid there, like youth group shit.
And so we had been invited to come like on a Sunday, and we went. And again, like I still, like, will say this, the people there were so warm, I think is how we felt going there. Because sometimes I think if you're going to a new church, it can feel weird, odd, like everybody knows each other and then we don't.
The church that we went to is a small, like, family, generational church, which we still love. It's great.
Yeah.
We're not as actively involved as we were due to a lot of belief changes, I guess you could say. But we also want to keep those relationships open because they're such great people. Like,
yeah.
And
so the reason why I say that is just like divine timing with everything, because those things kind of happened like within a couple months of each other.
Yeah.
Of getting into Amway and starting to grow that way, and then meeting some really amazing people and attending church and just growing for us at that time in the way that was where we needed to be and what we needed to do.
And in that time, that was right around when I got my impaired driving. So
yeah, so
that was one of the like the fighting nights because you were originally supposed to go with us to that evening or whatever, and then I was fucking pissed, and I was like, fuck you, you already did your partying, I'm gonna go do my partying kind of thing, because like, why should she get to party twice? I fucking put in my work, I did whatever, which as honestly, to me, still to this day, very justifiable.
Yeah, but still.
But it was, like one of those things where we were originally supposed to go out together, and then uh, we didn't, and it was a very intense fight, I guess you could say. I don't remember specifics. I just remember that you were originally supposed to go, and we just, so we don't Justin and Jonah, and then
didn't even call me from jail.
Didn't even call her from jail. I called my mom. That's how sour I was still. 'Cause fuck you. I was still pretty. Me and my mom were still like. That's a whole nother story. Like how my mom and I or whatever. We have yeah. Anyways.
So again, around this time, like things were really turmoil is a word that keeps coming to me, but I don't think
turbulent.
Treacherous, turbulent. There we go. Yeah, super. Especially because again, then he got in trouble, got this impaired driving, and was just like super stressed about that. And so we had talked about this in our stress episode. So if you haven't listened to it, go listen to it, episode 2. But how he handled that at the time wasn't great, wasn't super ideal, especially because it just created more stuff.
Because I didn't know how to deal with stress at that point in my life, and
So then that had happened, and again, divine timing, Amway came into our lives, the church came into our lives, and then things just started changing.
Yeah.
So we started changing, we started engaging in healthier habits, we started being more aware of our stuff, we started putting ourselves out there more.
But it was very slow, just so everybody, it's not just like, oh yeah, I fucking get it now. Like, it was very, very slow. This is a very slow progress. Because like this shit is so ingrained into us, like it's really hard to.
Learning
it's
real.
Yeah,
like there's a lot that needs to be unlearned, and so it's not just flip of a switch. We went to one Amway meeting, went to church once, and we were like, we do all these things.
Yeah. Like it took months and months and months, and even going to church was a really hard discipline for us because like we weren't going to that in the beginning, and everything has like ebbs and flows, and like we go in and out, just like our habits and shit. Some habits we can really get installed and downloaded really well, and other habits they go in and out for fucking years. So reading was a really hard one for me, but that was that's where a lot of the personal development came from for me personally. Because like in high school I'd always do spark notes. I was a shitty reader. Like I couldn't even have her like fucking breathe in the room and
it would be so distracting to him. Or like you have to read out loud.
I literally had to focus, and I still mouth the words when I read to this day. But I couldn't read worth a fuck. Like I knew how to read, but like I'd have to read really slow. I couldn't have traffic noise. I had to have dead quiet, and I had to point my finger to the thing, letters on the page and shit. And but once I got that taste of like, damn, like these concepts are fucking incredible.
And I think for you it comes back to, right, like for school you hated learning that stuff, but then when it turned into something that was like learning that you were like totally on board with, like hell yeah. Like he just like
informational piece. Yeah exactly.
Listen to audios, and anyway, so things started changing slowly again, yes, but like we had made some shifts, and then we got engaged in September of 2017. So I think that was
which I said I wasn't even gonna get and fucking marry her until she had her college debt, which paid off, and I made an exception for you, so you're welcome.
Thanks.
So
but yeah, so I think like looking at like our engagement period and like that time, like obviously things were better. They're still not.
They're still wrong. Great. Yeah, they weren't great, but they were a hell of a lot better because like dude, we had like I had ultimatums because I didn't like your friends and shit like that.
Ultimatums, silent treatment.
Yeah.
But she was like at the time so good at holding grudges, like.
Yeah. And
then for somebody like me who's sensitive and has that like anxious attachment, so when he started pulling away, that stressed me out and made me super anxious, and I thought I needed to do was pull closer to him. So he's pulling away, and I'm trying to get closer, and so anytime, and he knew that.
I used to chase her around the room, like, cause like you try to get away to like fucking not, cause you were breaking down and shit, and I just fucking run you into the ground. I'm still
See,
really
so
good
this
at
is
that
like
shit.
some of that toxic stuff we were talking about. Like, I guess we didn't really go into like super detail, but
Yeah.
with like, again, with like the night that we were supposed to go out together, would just like leave me and say,
Yeah, I
like,
wouldn't say shit. I just fucking bounce.
I would be like texting him, I'd be calling him, like, ignore. For literally, he would ignore me for days.
Yeah, like, because I was working nights at the time too. So like that would even be that was a whole nother dynamic because like it's not like I had to see her or I had whatever.
Yeah.
Because I was working nights, so I'd go into fucking work at like 10 o'clock or whatever, and then I'd get out at like 6:30 or whatever, and she'd still be sleeping when I went to bed. And then, she'd get up and go to do her class, whatever.
So we were, what is it called? Like the ships passing in the night.
Yeah.
Because he was working at night when I was sleeping. I'd still be asleep. He'd come home. He'd be sleeping because he's sleeping during the day. I'd get up, go to class, go to work. And then sometimes we'd have like those couple hours like before you're going to work where I'd be home, but not even all the time.
Yeah.
So like we weren't physically spending a lot of like awake time together. So for him to ignore me for days was relatively easy because we weren't actually face to face a lot. But again, so going back to like our engagement, like things were different. We still had, I think, there's been a shift, I think, in our path a little bit too, which I have David on there, so we'll get there. But there was just a shift because like when we look at Amway and the personal development, it was very like, not necessarily just business oriented, but was very like.
It's not like spiritual.
Yeah.
It was just like it was still 100% personal development. Absolutely. It's like how to, get your shit together for the most part. But it wasn't like as spiritual as like I don't know, trauma and soul and stuff like that. It was more about like it was more like how to be more extrovert instead of introvert, and like
how to be confident in those things.
Yeah, exactly. So, which there's a lot of value in there, and that's a great place to start, 100%,
for sure,
because it leads into other stuff. Because once you start figuring out like why am I an introvert? Well, because of this, this specific, instance.
Looking at like the root of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So then once you start looking at the root of things, you realize like a lot of it has to do with specifically childhood traumas and stuff like that, and like I don't feel worthy and I don't have self-love and whatever else, and then you're like, okay, why don't I have self-love? So then there's like layers to the game. And we're still, I feel like, extremely young in the game, but we figure, fuck, we can help people that are not as far as us, because I feel like we're pretty relatable for the most part. Like shit.
I think so, but
yeah.
So
like you think you've seen some shit. I've done some shit.
Yeah, we've got lots of stories for you.
Yeah.
Sure. So then enter some other really amazing humans into our life who invited us on these weekends. So you went first because in the relationship the guys go first, and so you spend like this Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday with this community. It's
like a Christian retreat, and then men and women go have separate weekends and stuff. But men always.
I literally just got goosebumps. It's so good. So you have no phone, no electronics, no contact to like other people. There's obviously like people that they can get a hold of if something happens while you're gone. But then there's just like you have to get invited to them. So he had known somebody who had invited him, and it's the same thing. So all of these other people that have gone on these retreats before can sponsor someone to have them go. So I mean, I don't know how big your weekend was. Mine was maybe like 30-ish people, 20,
probably.
30.
Yeah, probably.
And so I don't think like knew if we were gonna know anybody. I think you ended up knowing some people just because you grew up in this community, like in this.
I'm trying to avoid them just because I'm like that, like one.
Just so that he can get his like own experience.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, exactly.
So. I guess we're like giving stuff away technically, so we won't like whatever go into it. But it was just a super amazing weekend. So he went and did his. I went and then like a few weeks after did mine, and like that was just.
That was pretty direct changing. That changed our directory.
Yeah, it was seriously like still to this day one of my favorite like experiences. It was so good. And so that I think again just like deeply rooted in some stuff that we had kind of been like entering into our lives, but I think for me personally that weekend just like took hold of so much more stuff. I embodied more following that weekend. And so again, because we had this like really high like mountaintop experience, I think things were like good.
Yeah, for the most part.
But again, so and I also want to point back to from our engagement to our marriage, which we got married in August of 2018, so an 11-month engagement. We grew a lot in that 11 months, and so there are times where like the mind in me, which is silly because it's hindsight, I can't do anything about it, but would be like, wow, that was kind of a long engagement. Maybe we should have gotten married sooner, blah blah blah. But I also
Less money on the women.
I also look at it like we grew a lot. We grew up a lot in those 11 months for sure. Um, and then I'm briefly touching on this because it is definitely part of the journey, but we will circle back to it because it's also really important to dig deeper and talk more specifically about it. But there was just right before, like a month and a half before we got married, there was just this like yeah.
So
Drop.
if you want to know, watch a later episode.
Yes.
We'll see if we hit this. We probably won't hit it up next time.
No.
But it was like a fucking major thing. Like, yeah.
Quite honestly, like talking about it right now is making my heart beat harder. Like I apparently still have some like attachment to it, but again, we'll talk about that because I've also come a very long way with that. So, but anyway, it was a month and a half before we were to get married. Huge bomb. And so we had to decide, I think more so I had to decide what to do with that information, how I felt about it, what that meant for our wedding in 6 weeks. Spoiler alert, we got married, so it didn't change that.
Can't stop this train.
But yeah, so again, and I think like looking back on that time of marriage too, of getting married, that was like a really high. Like I think we were just very connected as a couple. We were still on that like journey of like bettering ourselves, and then I think just in like all of the getting married love, it was stressful too, I think, because of the way that I chose to go about planning the wedding. I took on stress. I acted kind of irrationally. I worried about things that now looking back on it did not matter at all. And so that kind of created.
I'm telling you.
He did try telling me. But so that created some like conflict at that point because I need it to be this way and it needs to be this way and it should blah blah blah. Dumb dumb dumb. My advice to anybody you marry: do whatever you want. There are no shoulds.
Don't take it fucking so seriously. Like, I was just like, dude, we can go out and get married at the fucking courthouse for all I care. But that's typically how dudes are, though, right? You know, like, we don't really care, and we want to spend as little as money as we can in order to, like, put that money to better use.
But I say that just because, like, it was still good, but it was just some of that. But then getting married, like, I don't know, that day was just, like, so good. We were so connected. I think you were just in a different place than I'd been prior to that. Like, we were just in love. And so, and we still are. Not to say that we're not, but for anybody that's gotten married, like, that's just,
Like,
that's really...
there's obviously ebbs and flows and, you know, peaks and valleys. And that was one of, like, the high peaks. You know what I mean? So, you know, like, you might not, at some point you will reach that peak again, but it just might be a very long time because, like, obviously it's a big deal that you're committing your life and all this other shit to, you know.
It also might not be that long. I don't want them to think, like, these peaks can only come every so often.
Oh, yeah.
And just looking back, like, there's just love. We were in a good place. We were working on ourselves. Like, it was just good.
Yeah.
And so my notes are kind of coming to an end, but I feel like there's more.
But basically, you know, at this point, we were still continuing. Eventually, we dropped out of Amway, you know, so.
Right. Yep. So we stopped that.
Yeah. Yep. It just wasn't serving us at that point. It was a stepping stone, and we got what we needed out of it. Not to say that I wouldn't be. I'm not against returning to multi-level marketing at this point. It's just not, you know, in my life.
We've dabbled even since then.
Yeah. Yep. It's just, you know, finding the right one and finding the right timing and everything else. So, it just hasn't happened yet. But another thing basically we just continued to ebb and flow with our personal development.
Right. At a level, I think overall though, but again, like everything comes and goes, and so
yeah,
we're not perfect.
Yeah, 100%. We're still, growth looks like this, you know. So
backwards sometimes.
Yeah. And so, we continue to be um, involved with personal development stuff. One of the personal development stuff things that I was involved with because I listened to a lot of impact theory, like Ed Milet and Jesse Itzler were my two favorite impact theories. They're incredible. So if you they're on YouTube, so check them out if you're interested. Uh, I got involved with Jesse Itzler because Jesse Itzler just had a great take on life and shit. And I just really embodied his concepts and his ideology, I guess. So I started getting involved with, it's called Build Your Life Resume, which is one of the reasons, why we have like a Misogi every year, which I don't even have a Misogi this year.
Which is, by the way, a big event that
Yeah.
you, like, a life altering
That's something that
type.
changes you, something that scares the shit out of you, like just super, super hard. And that's why I did the 100 miler last year because of, that was my Misogi. So I wanted to run an ultra marathon,
I did the
100 miler. Yeah.
If you don't know. And my brother, he did it with us. Or me.
So, Build Your Life Resume is kind of like a social community. You pay to be in it, and it's like $900 a year. So it's pretty inexpensive. You get to network with other like-minded people, people that love personal development. And I was following this other dude and said, you need a fucking coach. Like you have to have a coach, which started making sense to me. Especially because like the whole Amway thing, the multi-level marketing, you have mentors. So people mentor you in the business and in life and everything else. So they're further along in your life with you. That's why I like old friends, because they're so much more wise than
like age.
Yeah, older friends that are older. Um, because they have a lot more life experience, so that they can basically coach you and mentor you. That's why the older generation is so important, especially today. Um, so I, where was I?
You need to get a coach.
I needed to get a coach. So I was like, okay, shit. Well, then I started going on the journey of looking for a coach. And in BYLR, the group, Build Your Life Resume, I saw this dude post about this other guy, and he was like, dude, he's so great, he's a great communicator. He helped me through a lot of stuff. If you ever have any questions or struggles, hit up this guy. And I was like, okay, cool. So I fucking hit up that guy and was like, hey, do you do, coaching? And he's like, yeah. Um, so I did my first like free 15-minute call with him, and basically gonna kind of got a feel, see if we were a good match, see what he was having to offer and shit. And he left me with a couple nuggets, and with the nuggets, I basically was like, okay, cool, I can get down with this. And he's been a very intricate part of our personal development as well.
Mm-hmm.
And which we haven't really been connected or recent, but
he's still there.
Yeah, he's still there. He's 100%.
Well, and you started working with him first, and I think you had like a few months working with him just you two.
Yeah.
And then he had brought up like, well, what about your wife? Like, what are her thoughts? How does she feel about?
Because if you're not on the same fucking journey, like you're gonna have some major issues. So, and that was one of our. First, to elaborate, she was very liberal and I was very conservative. So that caused a lot of problems, which meant we weren't on the same path to begin with.
That's what I want. You don't have to be on the same journey necessarily, but it's like the rubber band thing. So if you have like two items and a rubber band is wrapped around them and one of them's moving this way and this one's not moving, eventually there's going to be a snap. Or if this one's moving this way and this one's going the opposite direction, there's going to be a break.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't have to look the same. You don't have to do the same stuff and end up to be the same human, right? Like that's not fun. But yeah, same direction.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so then he had asked about me and like what I thought, so I ended up doing like my free call with him, and I started working with him as well.
Yeah, and he just taught us a lot of different tools that were life changing, that have really helped how we communicate with each other, how we communicate with business partners and stuff.
Yeah. How we even just look at
life, yeah. How
Yeah.
we look at life. Like it's like holy shit, everything changed after everything hit a different level when we
Expanded for sure.
yeah, expanded and hit another level when we started working with him. Um, so yeah, and that's kind of and that was within the past and
Couple of years.
was
Year and a half maybe?
yeah, about a year and a half, I guess, at this point. So, and that's basically where we're at now.
And I think like a big turning point is like yes, we started working with a coach but I think like we started investing in ourselves more. So for a while you were investing in yourself. Like you were paying for the BYLR, you had like paid for David and like I obviously like jumped on that train too, but even now like I invest in myself monetarily in other ways absolutely, but I also think like doing that monetarily like with your money is showing the universe that like I'm taking myself seriously. I am taking
We
like
spend thousands of dollars every year, thousands and thousands of dollars every year in either books, courses, groups, shit to coaching, mentors, all this shit. We spend thousands of dollars every fucking year to enable to enhance our lives. You know, you spend, you know, money for the gym, you spend money for food to enhance your body, supplements, whatever else. We want to enhance our life experience. So, yeah, and well, yeah, basically, if you enhance your mind, you enhance your life experience. So, that's basically where you know, because I don't fucking mind spending a bunch of money on shit as long as it's gonna. Because like, if you can change that one sentence, could literally change your whole direction towards life.
Mm-hmm.
You could just fucking hit you. It's just like, holy shit, that was you know,
what I needed to hear, and I didn't even know it.
Year. And that you know, so you could pay $1,000 for that you know conference or whatever that you went to. And that fucking thing could either, you know, one, put you into meeting this one individual that, you know, sets your whole life and changes it. Or, you know, maybe that one speaker said that one sentence that fucking, you know, made you think about this idea and you went into business because of that one sentence. Like, you never know what's going to fucking change your whole life. So, you have to be willing to put your money where your mouth is, essentially.
And so that's, like I said, that's where we are now. Like, I'm currently enrolled in a course. I just bought another one. You pay for coaching monthly.
Yeah. Yep.
And so, and that's where we are. I mean,
that's one of the reasons why we started this whole fucking podcast. And who knows where that's going to go. Maybe it'll, I doubt it's going to just like, I doubt we're just going to end up stop doing it, you know, and fizzling out. But, you know, maybe it'll won't be blown up and big or whatever else, and maybe it'll in retrospect or whatever, maybe it'll introduce us into somebody that's like, hey, dude, this was super cool, you know, and like, you know, change that. So like literally this podcast, and that's essentially what we want this podcast to do. It's a fucking free, so all you got to do is give your time to listen to it on your way to work or on you know whatever. So you know, hopefully something that we said in this, you know, one podcast and the next podcast or whatever, or a future podcast will change the trajectory of your life.
But yeah, so this is like where we are again. Like it's totally a journey. We have so much further to go. We have not arrived. And again, we never will. That's not the point to reach a destination. But this is where we are currently on our growth journey, is putting ourselves out there, sharing with people the information that we have. And today we just wanted to give you kind of some insight. We probably skipped some stuff or missed some stuff. So like if you have questions or want clarification on anything, like reach out for sure. But just again, looking at the humans that we were over 10 years ago compared to today is so different. Looking at our relationship is so different. Looking at how we handle situations and look at the world is so different, and it's really freaking cool to grow and evolve and change. And from somebody who again used to have a hard time with change, like I shouldn't have to change,
and criticism.
You should just accept me as I am. Like, why would I want to change? Like, that is so not my mindset anymore. Like, I absolutely want to change. That is the goal. I don't want to be the same Andrea today as I am in 5 years. Or even a smaller window of time, like between now and next year. I don't want to be the same human. We are on this earth to grow and evolve and
just expand, guys. Like, don't fucking sit there and go to the same job unless you like it, and watch the same shit over and over and over again and go through the same routine for the next 40 fucking years and then look back at your life and be like, oh shit, like what did I do? Like if you
There's so much that this world has to offer and that
Yeah.
we are allowed to experience here.
That's basic. Again, I keep going over this because I kind of want to make sure, because what if someone jumps into a random podcast, right? And they're just like, what the fuck are these guys doing? Um, that's the point of this particular podcast, is to introduce you to new ideas, new concepts, new shit, to basically have the opportunity to change the trajectory of your life, because we've changed ours, and we recognize that this is a whole new game. This is so much. This is a better way of living, in my opinion. And
Yeah.
obviously, we're not gonna fucking force anybody to do it. We're just offering. We're just like, here's the food. You can feed your mind, or you can, neglect it and say, it's not for me. So I don't particularly care. I hope you were to like take something out of this and apply it. But if you don't, I know someone eventually will, and if that's fucking 10 years from now, or if that's a week from now, that's okay with me. It's just, I want to be able to change. Like, I like the idea of helping people. Like, I like the idea of, like, showing people that there's a better way to live, because, like, people are fucking miserable.
I think on a previous podcast I had, like, because he had said this, like, of the better way to live, and I was like, well, better, like, that's a judgment, but, like, now talking about, like, our journey today and, like, looking back, like, this way of living and the way that we are now is way better than what we were doing, and we didn't even know before. Like, we were in our misery and in the shit and just
We thought that was normal.
continuing it and
Yeah.
living it, and not, like, thinking, like, this is just how it is. Relationships are just hard. Life is just hard.
Because we look at your parents, and they don't have a spectacular relationship, and we looked at mine, and mine have a fucking garbage relationship. And I'm just like, well, this is how it is. I'm supposed to fight with you every fucking day, and I'm supposed to be resentful of you, and I'm supposed to be an asshole,
Right. I'm
and then
supposed to think you're an ass, and I'm supposed to just deal with your shit. Like,
yeah. So I mean, it just is what it is, and take what you will. So
well, not it is what it is. Like, but where that comes for me is like the generational stuff. Like, we are choosing to end that. Like, we
yeah,
it's a
100%.
partnership, and we're best friends, and like, yes, there's conflict, but like,
Yeah.
looking at our and that's. And not everybody has to be in a relationship either. Like, you working on yourself without a partner.
In general.
Without a partner will again lead you to like feeling like you're doing better and feeling better and living better. But if your goal is to be with somebody and start a family, like, you working on yourself, you're going to bring and attract that right person into your life, rather than, and we've talked about this, like with our trauma bond, like, that is absolutely how we got together, for sure. We can own that, we can talk about it, and we could have stayed that way. But like, we did end up together, and so we are going to make the best of this. Like, why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we want to thrive and be happy and enjoy this partnership that we've decided to be in?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like there's some more shit, but probably for another podcast.
Yeah, we could always do a part 2 if something comes to it. But again, we just wanted to share with you guys the journey. Some people may have known, bits and pieces, but and again, we may have left some stuff out, but I think we just hit some big.
Just to clarify, one, like, so people understand, like, we were extremely toxic when we got together. And two, we still have our shit, to this day.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't blow up to the same degree by any means. Like, it's not like I fucking ignore her. I don't even ignore her at all, really, anymore. And if she needs her space, I don't fucking chase her around, trying to make her fucking break down and shitty, because, like, that was a very controlling, part of me. And it doesn't mean I don't want to sometimes. Like, I fucking enjoy having that control, and I enjoy, like, it's basically ingrained in me at this point in my life. And maybe, fucking when I'm 80 years old, if I live that long, but probably not, it won't be ingrained into me. But so I have to refute the urge to do these things. So, like, you have to break the patterns in order to, get the personal growth. So,
right. And to say,
I just want to clarify, it was a fucking really, 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 really shitty when we first got together because of the trauma, and now it still exists.
Right.
It's just not anywhere to near the same degree because obviously it's not. It's different when you're sitting on the couch looking at fucking this guy climb the mountain and be like, yeah, I can fucking do that, and then like once you start doing it, you're like you get hit in the mouth and you're like, holy shit, this is a lot harder than I anticipated.
Right, and that's what I want to say is like it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Like just because you decide to start this journey, like actually some things get harder because you are opening yourself up. You're looking at things that you didn't look at before. And so again, yes, like we are still human beings. We are still unlearning. We are still learning. We are still reprogramming a lot. And so to say like our relationship is so great and we've come so far, look at us now. Like no, we still have our stuff. But again, we have worked on a lot and we are aware of a lot more so that it's not like it was at all.
And this is kind of like a random excerpt, but like what Shannon said that one time about a book ripping you open.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, elaborate on that. Basically,
Well,
when you read a personal development book, the book basically just tears you open and
yeah, just rips you open and like shows you.
it exposes you. Basically, it exposes your shit. It shines light into the darkness. So like they basically become not they're no longer blind spots because you can't see your fucking behaviors and your patterns, right? um
If you're blind to them.
yeah, if you're blind to them, which a lot of people are, and that's where self-awareness comes into. Books allow for self-awareness, and a lot of people might watch this fucking thing and say like, well, I'm not even that bad, or whatever else. You don't even realize you're that bad. I told my dad, like, you don't even know what happiness is. I literally told him that. I'm like, are you fucking happy? And he's like, yeah, I'm pretty happy. And I'm like, bro, I don't even think you know what happiness is. I literally told that to my father, like dead fucking straight face, it is what it is. I'm not trying to be an asshole, but I want him to recognize, like, hey, this is it. So, you know, like, yeah.
Yeah. So again, I think it was important to say that I think too because to act like we never revert back to old habits or patterns isn't the case. And again, I just want to point out too that when you decide to go down that journey, the ripping open doesn't feel good, right? Like, and it's your growth comes from struggle. I don't know if struggle is the right word.
Look at the gym. You break down.
About stress, yeah, in that way.
Yeah.
That like you are breaking down your muscles. Your muscles are literally like, are they like literally being torn?
You have to you have to go into it with the aspect of like if you pray for patience from God, you're not going to get patience, you're going to get opportunities to practice. So when you do the personal development, especially with a significant other, I'm guessing I not that I dislike our relationship or whatever else, but neither one of us got the opportunity to be ourselves. So I don't even exactly know.
Alone.
Yeah, and to this day, I don't exactly know who I am because I went from a shitty fucking childhood, or per se, to a toxic relationship to now. So like I never really did any self discovery of who I am as an individual to this day. And the only way to do that would be basically to take like some sort of hiatus.
Right, because you can to a degree, but like you're still part of a bigger. We're still in this unit, so like you can still discover as much as you can, but also recognizing that like I'm still in this though, so that is like a lens on myself that if you weren't here, maybe that would be the case.
Yeah, because the reason why she has a lot of the habits that she does and she has a mindset that she has is because of my fucking, my influence. And thankfully,
which I used to hate like that being the truth before. I think mainly just because can be arrogant about it at times, but like absolutely for sure the reason why I like got on this journey was because of things that he had been introduced to and was like, I'm doing this.
And that's kind of what happened was I was like, either you're getting on this fucking boat or because basically you were like, I'm standing here, and I'm like, either you're fucking coming with me or you're getting the fuck out. Basically, it's essentially what happened, in so many words. So
and not saying that's the best way to go about it, but for us and our relationship and where we were, like, whatever, it worked because we're here and we're growing and we're learning, and
yeah.
So
So don't be afraid of the fucking, that kind of plays into the last podcast episode, I think, don't be afraid of fucking the, openness and honesty and whatever
Being
else.
uncomfortable.
Yeah, because you're gonna see a lot of shit about yourself, and you're gonna be like, "Holy shit, I didn't even recognize that." There's still stuff, and to the day I die, there'll be stuff that I'm discovering about myself that I didn't even recognize because I never knew. But a book will expose it, friends will expose it. That's why I'm so open to criticism, because like it exposes stuff. So they're like shining a light for me to see, and I'm like, oh shit, you're right, that is there. And I can take these things for what if they're worth. I can say like, well, that's inaccurate. Like I can see where you're coming from, but that's not how I am all the time because you only see me in this situation or whatever else. But so I just love criticism. It's just so fucking great.
I think I'm still getting to a place where I'm like okay with criticism, but I'm also like gotten so okay with the uncomfortable. Like so much more than I used to be. And that's because like of this journey, but I've also decided to do things that are hard or scary or whatever, but like now I get like excited about it. Like there's somebody in our life who is going to have this opportunity to grow from a situation that they're going to be in, and I literally told him, I'm like, or told you, I think, I don't know if I told him, but I'm like excited for him. Like it's going to be uncomfortable and
Big boy competition or whatever.
it's going to suck, but I'm like, this is exciting.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's great. And I like seeing people in that opportunity or those positions as well because, like I just like to see people grow, dude. It's just so rewarding. Which is why I've been contemplating on doing like a coaching thing for like my own coaching group or like one-on-one coaching. Again, it's the only reason I probably haven't started is because I don't feel worthy enough, basically. Which I will never feel worthy until I earn that worthiness because, well, yeah, well, at this point in my life, because, I have to earn, yeah, yeah. Earning worthiness and self-love and shit, well, it may or may not be our next podcast. We'll see. I feel like that's a pretty good one, especially with Mike just bringing it up for me. So, because I actually thought about that earlier this week, um, because I was like, oh, dude, that one's raw and that one's like right here in my face and recent. So, but we'll save that for maybe next time. So yeah, I think that's it as far as it goes. So recap real quick. Basically, yeah, we've come a long way from fucking huge problems, major fucking issues, and a miserable life. And now we're to the point where we're actually pretty content and our relationships very honest and open, and we don't take offense to that open and honesty as much and shit like that.
Our relationships with other people are more authentic.
Yeah, for sure.
We enjoy growth and like
Yeah.
expansion of who we are as humans.
And that's another thing. Like, when you do this stuff, like it kind of just gets, you just get used to it. You get used to the fucking awkwardness of the conversation, and you get used to the uncomfortable conversations and uncomfortableness in situations because you're just like, oh, I've been here before. Like this is, it's not a big deal because I've already expressed, this concept to you, and now I can express, like my, not concept, but I've expressed my downfall to you. Now I can express it to other people, and so on and so forth. So, but
It's
yeah,
a really fun and exciting journey to decide to work on yourself and
making like it a true point though, like making like aggressively going after it, like,
and intentional. It doesn't necessarily have to be aggressive because not everybody is, but be really intentional with it. Like don't just willy-nilly, like, because then your results aren't going to be there, and then
yeah, yep. If you just fuck around and don't make, like you said, an intentional effort, like to read every day, to listen to an audio every day, then you just you won't see the results, as well as you would, and you might get discouraged. So be open to like putting in the time and putting in the effort, intentionally. So I think that's it for the most part. So
let us know if you have questions, if something wasn't clear, or you just have further follow-up questions.
I feel like this is a really good one.
I was excited for it.
Yeah, I was like, impartial or whatever at the beginning, but I'm just rolling with it now. Or I just rolled with it or whatever, and a lot of good stuff came out. So if you're listening to us via YouTube, ring the bell. I think there's a bell. I need to figure out what that is.
Subscribe. We've gone over this. Yes.
Is that what the bell is?
Yes.
Subscribe is?
Yes.
Okay. I just hear people say that in other YouTube videos. So
subscribe,
like the video or dislike the video, but at least leave a
wherever
comment.
we are.
Yeah. At least leave a comment. If you're gonna dislike it, tell me fucking why. You know, I'm open to criticism and shit. Yeah. So and then if you're listening to this on Podcast Player or Castbox or whatever the podcast player is, shit, I don't even know. Go over to YouTube, subscribe there, and same vice versa. So
all the things. Our
yeah.
Facebook page.
Yeah, we have an Instagram, we have a Facebook page. You can follow us or add us as a friend on social media directly. Most of you probably are already friends, so but yeah, we're just looking to fucking change lives and get people out there. So if you can help us do that, if you can, you know, think about it this way, you know, like if you can fucking share this video or share a post that we make and someone else sees it and it changes their life, you fucking directly change that person's life. Why wouldn't you want to do that, you know, like for the better? So if you have any value or see any value into this, share this, all of it, share everything. So but cool, guys, we are out. We recorded a day early, so
this was new for us.
Yeah.
See how we feel about it.
And obviously, most of you know at this point we're releasing our podcasts on Monday mornings from here on out. So listen to us on your way to work or on your and on the way back from work. You know, because you've got a 30-minute drive, 30 minutes there, 30 minutes back. You can fucking knock it out.
Here's Type A telling you how it all fits into your schedule.
I can do whatever you need me to do.
All right, all. Well, thank you for listening. We appreciate you being here, and we look forward to the conversation in the next one.
See you guys later.